Hey friend, my name is Mike and welcome to my garden. It's 40 feet by 40 feet or 1,600 feet and I call it Rancho Reiso. I'm located here in Southern California. Today is July 8th and I'm going to give you a garden tour and update of all that's gone on in the last about month and a half since my last garden update. Now, my wife and I came back from a 10-day, 2,200-mile road trip last night. We toured up and down most of the West Coast, and while we were gone, my garden, of course, was watered. I have drip irrigation. My son helped water, but we really didn't do any pruning or harvesting, so today should be quite a bountiful harvest, which I'm going to share with you. So look forward to sharing this video with you. I hope you enjoy. So let's start with our eastern quadrant here. Take a look at some of the tomatoes. So looking at some of these tomatoes, the first one, blue boar berries, the tomatoes were just too small for my liking, even though the plant did well. Just couldn't get a mouthful of tomato eating these little suckers. By contrast, over here, the golden San Marzano, man, the determinant plant, it wasn't that tall, but it was packed with golden San Marzano tomatoes. Great performer. Blancofchen did really well. Berkeley tie-dye didn't make it in my garden. Lemon drop, this one did quite well. Lots of good little tomatoes. Camp Joy, also a good performer. Lots of red cherry tomatoes, very sweet. Moving along, we've got the Snow White Ivory Cherry. Did really well in my garden. Tons and tons of little, very light colored cherry tomatoes. The San Marzano Redorta, well, it's kind of hard for me to say at this point because it's a little scraggly and they haven't matured. But Indigo Kumquat, this was one of the star plants. Bushy, constantly had to prune it, tons and tons of tomatoes. So that was a real stellar performer so far. And going back to the back of this row, the San Marzano did not make it. The blue gold also failed, but we did have success back here with the yellow plum, and that's been producing quite well for me. So there you have it, my tomatoes. This holy basil, or tulsi, is one of my volunteer plants. This is where I had the tulsi last year. Some onion seeds, the onion blossom. This is golden wax, which I just put in the seed before we left on our trip, and it hadn't had sprouted. These pole beans, which are just starting, are ojo de cabra. And you can see behind it a volunteer tomato. And I don't see any fruit hanging yet, but again, that must have been a seed that came out of my compost pile. And here are some of my herbs, and the holy basil, our tulsi, is looking really good. I've got some chamomile there in the background. Looks like here, just starting to sprout, is some spearmint. In this quadrant, you can see this row of peppers is still kind of just taking root. I put those in the ground right before we left on our trip, and they had been in the starter packs probably for too long. So not doing much here on this row of peppers, but when we get to the back of the quadrant, that's a different story. These are my carrot blooms, which I'll be getting some seeds from as it dries out. But without a doubt, one of the most stellar growers while we were gone has been this cucumber row. So I'll really spend some time sharing the cucumber harvest. but quite a few varieties. And I know today I'm going to be pulling out a lot of cucumbers. I used to be able to walk up and down this row before we left, but it's all grown out. And here are my more rooted, mature peppers. Lots of different varieties here. And we'll see what kind of fruit we have. Peppers, some veggies hanging here. That is Charlotte in the background and dahlias in the foreground, but no flowers just yet. Here's another volunteer from the garden, this cucumber, which I'll keep it from smothering some of these peppers over here. But the pepper patch is looking quite good, quite healthy. And if we kind of take a look around at some of the peppers that we see here, looks like they're coming along nicely. So always one of the highlight areas in the garden are the giant sunflowers. 4 different varieties growing here. And when we left, just this one flower has shown its yellow. But now, as you can see, got lots of flowers starting to pop. And they are, some of them probably 13, 14 feet tall back here. So, real tall. And then here in the corn section, my 2 varieties, Glass Gem and the Rancho Reiso Cross, which is a cross between strawberry popcorn and Cherokee long ear. And in a moment, I'm gonna bag up one of the tassels, or 2, to collect some pollen so I can hand pollinate and cross pollinate to get me some interesting and hopefully full ears of corn. And then down here are 2 varieties of pepper, the Santa Fe Grande and a variety of jalapeno. And it looks like the peppers just starting to get a couple of jalapenos and just starting to get some of these Santa Fe Grande peppers. So to fully pollinate or cross-pollinate corn, I bag up the tassels and leave those bags on overnight. The next morning, I get husks and pollen. I kind of sort out the husks, and then I use the brush, take the pollen, and I brush them onto the silks to make sure that they're all fully pollinated, or if I want to cross-pollinate. This whole procedure I refer to as corn porn. But enough of that, let's get to the cucumbers. I spent much of the day picking the Kish White and the ANC pickling cucumbers, and man, I got quite a nice basket full. What do I do with this many cucumbers? Well, glad you asked. It's pickle time, and I'm about to bring you into the kitchen for a special pickle preparation sneak peek. What I do here is I took some Rancho Reiso garlic, kind of, took off the husks there, some organic dill, and I packed the jars first with the garlic and the dill and some peppercorns, so there's a layer on the bottom. Next, here's some Kish White and some ANC pickling cucumbers, and I alternate putting the Kish White and the ANCs into the jar to give it a nice color pattern. Then I put some more dill, some more peppercorns, some more garlic, and then the brine, which is 50% vinegar, 50% water, and some salt. Fill the jars. Sometimes I use apple cider vinegar. Sometimes I put jalapenos. And then you process these in a boiling water bath for like 15 minutes to kill all the bacteria. Make sure it's preserved well. And boom, let them dry. Once all of these are dried, I put my labels on them, kind of identify what kind of pickles I got going on, and they make awesome holiday gifts. Hey, good morning. Today is Saturday, June 11th, and I am going to harvest apricots out of my apricot tree. So for my apricot harvest, I like to climb the tree first and give it some vigorous shaking. You can see how much fruit falls just from the shaking technique. Of course, my dogs get very excited by this whole process. Boom, let's go to the other side and shake, shake, shake it up real good. Look at all those apricots coming down. Oh yeah, my dogs are loving it. And I know that some people think apricots are bad for the dogs, but you know what? My dogs seem to be doing just fine. Afterwards, I pick up all the apricots off the ground. Nice sound effects. Then look at that basket. Sweet basket of apricots. Afterwards, I climb the tree and I hand pick anything that didn't fall from the shaking. You know, apricots all seem to come due and mature in about a week, week and a half, and you can only eat so much. So I do a mega harvest probably 2 weekends in a row, and boom, it's apricot jam time. Wash them thoroughly, of course, discard all the bruised ones. Half them, pits go in one jar, half apricots in the other. And into the pot they go. Oh, smells so good. Start boiling that up, get them nice and soft, and eventually I add some sugar and some lemon juice. In goes the blender, blending up the halves to a nice consistency, and then I let that simmer for a while. Oh man, this is like golden orange heaven. The house smells so good. Well, after it's reduced for a while, sometimes I add pectin, sometimes not. Ladle it into clean jars that I've processed or boiled, put through the dishwasher. Ladle them up, leave about a 1/4 inch on the top, and then I boil or process the filled jars for about 15 minutes, again, to kill any bacteria. When they've cooled down and I hear the lids pop, on goes my label. Hey friends, sweet. Today is June 19th. It's almost the official start of summer, and it's going to be a hot one today. So I'm getting my start on planting pole beans. The variety is Ojo de Cabra, which means eye of the goat in Espanol. And I'm going to be planting my pole beans to climb up on trellises. But I want to share with you a style of planting that Native Americans use and people have used for hundreds of years. It's cooperative planting, where people plant crops that help each other. And the Three Sisters style is where people planted corn, pole beans, and squash together. The corn actually acted as a trellis. Pole beans would climb up it, actually intertwine to help support the corn in high winds, and beans put nitrogen in the soil, which helped all the crops. And then the squash actually acted as a mulch, and that would retain moisture and suppress weeds. So the Three Sisters style of planting. Again, I'm just going to put them on trellises, but someday I'm going to try the Three Sisters. Also want to mention, folks, before you do some gardening in the sun, make sure and use your sunblock. I've had a couple different skin cancers on my face, all over my shoulders and arms. They're not fun. So slather up and then go enjoy your garden. So before I replant any section of my garden, I like to loosen up the soil with my favorite garden tool, which is called a broad fork. This one-piece heavy metal tool is like a big pitchfork. You just sink the blades or the tines into the soil, stand on it and lean back, lifting up a chunk of the soil. I think it's less pulverizing than using a rototiller, and it's also great exercise. After I've broken the ground up, I like to spread some of my own compost to amend the soil. And here, for the pole beans, I put in some support poles, which I am going to then wrap the trellis around. The trellis is necessary. The pole beans grow up the trellis, and like I explained earlier in the Three Sisters style of planting, you basically use the corn stalks in lieu of this trellis system. Well, there you have it. My June and July installment of the Rancho Reiso Garden updates. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Please watch some of my other videos. Take it easy and be well, my friends.